Well, hello everyone. Happy Wednesday. It is digital host A.J. Wuest welcoming you back to Before the Four, the live stream where I take you all through some of 48's top news stories and then some before our 4 o'clock newscast. Wherever you're watching Before the Four today, whether it is on Facebook, YouTube, or the 48 Now live stream, as always, thank you so much for watching and spending just a bit of your Wednesday afternoon here. Now, starting things off in Huntsville, where earlier today we learned of a large police presence in the area of Hobbs Island Road and South Parkway. According to Brent Patterson with the Madison County Sheriff's Office, the incident began around noon when a deputy initiated a traffic stop. Now, Patterson says the driver had outstanding warrants from another agency. He added that the driver assaulted the deputy and then took off on foot. The driver, who has not yet been identified, was captured a short time later. Patterson says dogs were used to track the suspect down, and the officer who was assaulted was taken to the hospital, but is expected to be okay. Police are assisting the Madison County Sheriff's Office in the case, and 48's Callie Neese is working to learn more on this situation coming up in our evening newscasts. But staying in Huntsville, a man was arrested for electronic solicitation of a child after allegedly sending sexual content to a minor. Now, on Sunday, a Huntsville police officer was flagged down by a car. The victim was in the car and told the officer that someone had asked her for unwanted sexual activity. According to Huntsville police, an investigation found that 40-year-old John Hartley, that's who you see on screen, sent a series of unsolicited messages to the victim on Snapchat, requested the minor to send explicit photos, and he offered to engage in sexual activity with the victim. Now, this case remains under active investigation and additional charges may be coming soon. Hartley is in the Madison County Jail on an over $29,000 bond. Now, in Hanceville, where a man was arrested after he didn't show up in court this week. Now, according to the Morgan County Sheriff's Office, they say deputies carried out failure to appear warrants today for 2 counts of sexual abuse on John Flanagan. That's who you see on screen. Authorities say Flanagan, who was out on bond, failed to show up in court on Monday. Deputies from Morgan County and Coleman County worked together to find Flanagan and took him into custody. He was booked into the Morgan County Jail without bond. But now, let's turn it over to 48 First Alert meteorologist Chelsea Aaron for a look at the latest forecast as we eye the tail end of the week. How's it looking, Chelsea?
Yes, AJ, it's been another gorgeous day across the Tennessee Valley, feeling very spring-like, but big changes on the way later in the week, and that involves rainfall. Here's a live look at Lake Guntersville, where we are seeing a mix of sun and clouds will continue to increase later on today due to a storm system already developing out to our west. Rain will be out of the forecast likely until late Thursday, but once we see rainfall, it will be heavy at times early on Friday. Current temperatures, despite the increasing cloud cover today, very warm for this time of year, near 70 degrees across northwest Alabama, and temperatures will stay above normal overnight. Expect morning lows by daybreak Thursday to range in the lower and middle 40s, and much of the day Thursday dry, with rain chances increasing likely after sunset overnight and through the early morning commute on Friday. Thankfully, no severe weather is in the forecast, but I would prepare for periods of heavy rainfall and wind gusts that could exceed 30, even 35 miles per hour. Winds will gradually diminish through Friday morning, and rain exits quickly, paving the way for a beautiful weekend. Most locations will pick up beneficial rainfall totals, with amounts ranging anywhere from ½ an inch to over an inch of rainfall through Friday afternoon. We will stay dry heading into your upcoming weekend, with plenty of sunshine both days and temperatures likely pushing near 70 degrees through the early part of next week.
Well, thank you, Chelsea. And now a story in case you missed it out of Decatur. Yesterday, 48's Callie Neese spoke with Decatur Councilman Hunter Pepper following last week's release of its third-party review of its police department. Take a listen to what Councilman Pepper had to say about Police Chief Todd Pinion.
Councilman Hunter Pepper says that Chief Todd Pinion is doing a fantastic job. but many others are questioning his leadership.
At this time, I am not confident in his ability as it stands.
Councilman Kyle Pike announced at Monday's council work session that he is not confident in Chief Pinion, and Councilman Billy Jackson said that they need to make a move in a different direction from the chief. This is coming after the city received an independent review of the police department where Pinion's leadership abilities were questioned. Pepper backs Pinion and says he's doing a fantastic job.
I do believe that the chief does have what it takes. I believe that he's been under a lot of stress and a lot of pressure, and that he has shown to work through every bit of it, and he's been working through it.
Many citizens raised concerns about the lack of communication Pinion has with the public. Pepper agreed that communication needs improvement, and he has spoken to Pinion about this before.
That I believe communication is something that should have been worked on a long time ago, and that it's something that needs to be worked on. However, he stepped up to the plate last night and defended his officers and did what was right.
Many recommendations were made in this review to the police department to make it stronger, but Pepper calls it a waste of taxpayer dollars.
The review that was completed was $324,000 of wasted taxpayer dollars. 100%.
Earlier today, I spoke with Councilman Carlton McMasters, and he agreed that communication was poor and there were things that needed to be improved upon within the department. But overall, DPD is a good police department. Reporting in Decatur, Cali News 48 News on your side.
Thank you, Callie. Now in a bit of state news, Alabama lawmakers are expected to discuss a bill next week that would give more rights to unmarried fathers. The bill is called the Good Dad Act and was pre-filed back in November. The bill would give certain custody rights to unmarried fathers who admit they are the father of a child. Now, under the bill, if a father lives within 40 miles of their child, they would be able to have shared custody of the child. However, there would be exceptions if a father is violent or the child or the mother does not want the violent father to be around them. But the bill would also require that both parents be notified if a child is going to move the child permanently from the state. Judges would be mandated to consider joint custody as the best option for a child unless there is a compelling reason. Now, Huntsville attorney Malia Durham says the bill would make it easier for unmarried fathers to receive shared custody since it would be established under the law that the father would have equal rights to the mother. Durham said she believes the bill is in the best interest of the children throughout North Alabama.
They really do want fathers to have an equal time with the child, an equal say in the child's upbringing. So I think the courts have really shifted a lot, but this just kind of reiterates that in stating, hey, we do recognize dads, and we do recognize that dads should have as much time with children as moms.
And now in Arab, where some residents are speaking out about rezoning and potential housing developments within city limits. 48 Savannah Sapp breaks it all down.
Margot, in just moments, the city's planning commission will hear from developer D.R. Horton, a company that wants to rezone part of 10th Street here in Arab to build 60 new single-family homes. Now, many of the neighbors that live in that area are hoping that leaders will shoot that proposal down in order to keep property values and traffic the same. Huntsville-based developer D.R. Horton is asking the city of Arab to rezone an area between 9th and 10th Street to allow medium-density housing. This comes after the company's request for high-density housing was denied last year. If it goes through, D.R. Horton plans to construct a development of more than 60 homes on around 36 acres, something that homeowners are standing against.
And that's a lot. You know, you're bringing in a lot to a place that is used to having a certain lifestyle and a certain openness to it.
Elena Frank says the development would drastically change the neighborhood she has lived in since she was a little girl. She says it will increase traffic, drive property values down, and potentially make it more difficult for students.
Anybody who resides within the city limits is going to get precedence over anybody outside of the city limits looking to come into the school district. Those particular students outside of the city limits will be pushed farther back on the waiting list, and they still have to pay that fee to attend our school systems.
Frank says while many homeowners know city leaders simply want more growth, she hopes they will listen to their concerns.
I understand you want the city to grow, but you still need to listen to the people who are residing in your city.
And tonight, after the public hearing, the Planning Commission will decide if this issue will go before the City Council for a vote. In Arab, I'm Savannah Sapp, 48 News, on your side.
Now heading out to the Shoals, last night Muscle Shoals city leaders gathered for a State of the City event where they shared their vision of Muscle Shoals for the near future. 48's Aria Pons was there. Let's take a look at what's to come.
So we just wanted to communicate kind of where we've been and where we are and where we hope to go.
Dozens of people packed a banquet hall in Muscle Shoals to hear about the future plans. Muscle Shoals Mayor Mike Lockhart says there are a few projects they're looking forward to. On top of the list is the new sports complex the city just approved.
We've done some preliminary work on it, but it's gonna be multi-dimensional. It's gonna have soccer and baseball and softball, pickleball, volleyball, baseball. You'll be able to do gymnastics in the event center. So everybody will have an opportunity to be doing something.
The sports complex will include brand new fields, retail shops surrounding it, and an event center. The mayor hopes the complex will bring hotels and tourism to the area. But he's not just looking to the future, he's also building on what they already have.
Our police and fire, they're well trained, they're professional, they know their job, they take pride in their work, and it makes it easy to want to support them. But in this day and age, as technology develops, you have to be positioned to grow through better technology, and we've done that.
The city has received grants totaling over $100,000 for technology last year to help the police department train. The fire department received a new station and added in the very first baby box in the Shoals. Lockhart says they keep all their city departments as up to date as they can. Aria Pons, 48, on your side.
Well, thank you, Aria. And now coming up after the break, I spoke with a political expert on the Trump administration. That will be coming up. Something you can do in Huntsville tomorrow night, and a story you're just not going to want to miss. It's all ahead. I'll see you all in 1 minute. Well, happy Wednesday, everyone, and welcome back to Before the Four. Now, immigration enforcement operations continued in major cities across the U.S. yesterday as the Trump administration cracks down on illegal immigration. Some illegal immigrants in Tennessee are concerned. Steve Meiling reports.
Mass deportations are happening nationwide, and some in Nashville are wondering which city is next.
I am really living every day with a lot of fear.
We spoke to this Nashville woman who crossed the border over 15 years ago from Mexico to better her life for her kids. But as federal immigration enforcement ramps up nationwide, every day together with her family, she fears, is not promised.
This is one of the scariest things that I just have to think about. I have 3 sons, and one of my sons has autism. So I am just trying to figure out what is going to happen if we are going to be separate or they are going to separate from my sons.
In Tennessee, the House Immigration Committee convenes Wednesday. The new bill proposed not only supports newly formed federal enforcement policies, but also establishes penalties for any city or leader who adopts sanctuary policies. Even though schools and churches are now on the table, Metro Nashville Public Schools tells us without legal authorization, any enforcement of immigration policies will not be allowed.
And I am really scared because this new president doesn't have heart. So I am thinking that in the future the president is going to ask for schools for information so my kids are not safe on schools.
While this woman does not know what's next for her family, she says talks to find a sanctuary city haven't been discussed, that they're hoping to stay put and wait it out.
I know that we are illegal here, but the government is also working with us because when we enter and they know that we are not legal, they gave us a number to pay taxes, to pay bills. We are just hoping that ICE doesn't fine us.
Well, thank you. And today I had the pleasure of seeing former poli-sci and history professor, political expert, Dr. Wayman E. Burke. He came into the station today as him and I spoke about an array of both local and national political topics. We spoke about President Donald Trump, some of his cabinet nominees, the legacy of Jimmy Carter's Space Command potentially moving to Huntsville, what to expect at the state legislature back in session next week, and the federal grant freeze. Take a listen to what Dr. Burke had to say about federal grants and federal workers here in the Rocket City.
They were interviewing Bill Kling and prominent city councilman here, of course, and I don't think people actually know for sure how that could negatively impact us. And it may impact things that many of us probably don't have a direct connection to, like Meals on Wheels. I've never worried really about a meal, but I know there are people who do. How does it affect, some child care things so that poor families can afford to actually go out and work and know that their children are safe with a caretaker? Because in many cases, if they lose those benefits, then they can't work, and that creates other problems, of course. Talking about buying out federal workers, if you're talking about doing away with those jobs, theoretically, there are, I'm told, like 40,000, give or take, people who drive through those Arsenal gates every day. If those jobs disappeared, it would have and they're not replaced, that has a tremendous negative impact on the Huntsville economy. I could say if we lost even a portion of those jobs, what happens to the value of your house, for example, which is most people's biggest investment? It's that would be economically disturbing to government communities like Huntsville.
Always a pleasure speaking to Dr. Burke, and you can watch that full 48 Now interview on our website right now. Just go to WAFF.com. But tomorrow night is the night for some country music fans in Huntsville. Country star Nico Moon is coming to the Rocket City, and last week I spoke with Nico, and take a listen to what he had to say about the show tomorrow night at the Von Braun Center. 2 EPs recently dropped, These Are the Days and These Are the Nights. Talk a little bit about what inspired those projects.
I'm a simple guy. And the way I like to enjoy myself is getting out by the water or getting around some fire. And so there's where these 2 EPs take you to, either waterside or fireside. And that's exactly where the show's going to take us as well, y'all. We're just going to have a nice relaxing time and take a little vacation by the water.
Nico, talk a little bit about growing up. I understand you were born in Texas, but you moved to Georgia, I believe at the age of 10, Douglasville, Georgia. What was it like for you growing up there in the 90s and early 2000s?
Man, it was awesome because, the Braves were going from worst to first back then. And so as a kid growing up, I was a huge Braves fan. And growing up about 30 minutes outside of Atlanta, which is where Douglasville is, I was in the country. And so I was listening to a lot of Travis Tritt, who's from Noonan, Georgia. And Travis Tritt, who's from Hiram, Georgia. And Alan Jackson, who's from Noonan, Georgia. But I was also listening to like Outkast and T.I. and all these artists that were coming out of Atlanta, I was just listening to the music that I was around. And for me, I loved Alan and Travis because they were telling my life story when I looked out and I looked around in my environment. But I love the way that Outkast and T.I. and all these hip hop groups out of Atlanta, I love the way their bass and drum sound. They were just hit so hard in my little truck, you know? And I always just told myself, you know, if I can make my own music one day, I want to make country music, but I wanted to hit hard, man. I wanted to smack that, smack those speakers in the truck, you know, make those truck windows shake.
Nico Moon, These Are the Nights tour tomorrow night at Mars Music Hall. Y'all, you're just not going to want to miss it. It's going to be an awesome time. But speaking of things you're just not going to want to miss, let's head into the stories you're just not going to want to miss coming up in our evening newscast. One word, math. Now that's a word Alabama students know very well. Alabama was the only state in the nation to see an improvement in math scores. Get more details on that story coming up. Another story you're just not going to want to miss. The latest on ticket scammers at the Shoals Theater. Get those details. And finally, the latest on Toyota Field and the expansion plan for it. Get that story tonight at 10 from 48's Nick Ballinger. And these are just a few of the stories you're just not going to want to miss coming up in our evening newscast. And it is that time, y'all. It is time for Facebook fun. And yesterday's Facebook question of the day, we had some technical difficulties back here yesterday, but we are back in full force today. That is right. Yesterday's 48 Facebook question, who was your most interesting teacher? And let me tell you, I had some interesting ones. I had some ones I liked and some that I didn't like, but even the ones I didn't like, I have some stories that I could say that you would consider interesting. But what I want to know is who y'all's favorite or most interesting teacher rather was. Bobby said it was 72 years ago. Wow. A little one-room school with 6 rows of desks. This was in Pettisville, Alabama, right up the road from Elkmont. One teacher, Miss Effie Wright, 1st through 6th grade, had to get our water from the well. Wow. Our lunch was biscuits brought from home. Love a homemade biscuit, a precious memory from long, long ago. Bobby, thank you so much for sharing. That is awesome. Pamela said Colonel Lovick Vern Maddox Jr. He taught me American history 40 years ago, retired from the Air Force and served during Vietnam. He lived history, so I learned. I remember when he showed the class the video of the Holocaust, it deeply affected me. I remember weeping out loud in class, and I wasn't the only one. He has since passed away, but I credit him for my love of history. Thank you, Colonel Maddox. Awesome, so sweet. An American hero for sure, absolutely. Thank you for commenting, Pamela. And then Kimberly said, Daryl Glover at Loretto High School in Lawrence County, Tennessee. He was my band director for years. He truly cared about his students, about teaching music. He was the best. Gotta love teachers, that is for sure. I think we have time for a few more. Mike Nix in Lauderdale County, my first music teacher and the man who influenced me to become a musician. Gotta love it. That is awesome. I have some music teachers that I loved as well. Shout out Miss Lipscomb if you're watching right now. And then William Sibley that taught me at Madison County Elementary and Gurley. I knew his history and could tell the best. He knew his history and could tell the best stories. Absolutely. One of my favorite subjects in school, history. Thank you all for commenting on today's Before the Four. And that is it for today. But I want to thank you all for watching. Enjoy tonight's evening newscast. And as always, you all have a great night.